Oh, hey.
Welcome to Chronicles of the Phoenix on this rainy day.
It's rainy and cold, but it's going to be nice this weekend.
I know, I'm ready. I feel like every person I've talked to this week has commented on how normally it's so much warmer by now and what the heck are we doing?
It's coming.
But by the time this pod comes out, it better be really hot.
It will be.
That's what I heard.
Mm-hmm. I've been dying to ask you.
What?
How did you bring fun into your last 2 weeks?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
I had to.
Listen, I was thinking about that, and I did not do ice cream for dinner. But to be fair, I haven't been in charge of dinner at all in the last several weeks because I'm not home for dinner most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
However, I will say we did a spontaneous day off where my son didn't have to just go to school because he was a little bit overwhelmed. It was more of a mental health day, I would say, but I would say I leaned into like the spontaneity of things in that way and thinking outside the box and not just being like, oh, well, we'll figure it out. Let's stay up till 9 doing your homework. And then the next day you can just deal with it and move forward. I was just like, you know what? I don't think you have to go to school tomorrow. I'm just going to skip it.
Ooh.
He was like, what? I was like, yeah, I think you have like 6 weeks left. He's only missed school 2 days this whole year.
Oh, he basically has perfect attendance in my book.
He does. The whole first trimester, he didn't miss any days. He missed 2 days last trimester, one of which was a mental health day, one of which was a sort of sick day, and then nothing this one yet. So I was like, it's perfect timing.
I love that.
They're doing state testing right now. You know what? I just feel for these kids this time of year because the teachers, you could tell, I feel like it's hard because they had to start like new content like March, you know, and then like they're still trying to get through it all, but then they have to do testing and then school's going to be over in a couple weeks after that or whatever, a few weeks. So I feel the pressure. They're like all simultaneously trying to get everything done at the same time.
Oh, what I'm seeing in my own kids, but also in the kids that I work with, is that they are stressed.
Yeah.
Because to your point, between the state testing and the high school, the AP testing,
Yep.
and also trying to cram in all the content that they haven't done yet. It's just
Finish before like field trips. You know, like there's a lot that happens the end of the year.
Yeah. And then all of the activities that come in May with the
Right.
concerts, the graduation parties,
Spirit Week,
all the things. So it's just, the kids are overwhelmed.
And so are the teachers. I work with a ton of people in education and they're just like waiting to get through. They're like, after the next 2 weeks, they're going to feel a lot lighter. And you could tell that's what the kids are feeling because the teachers are getting everything done in these next 2 weeks. So it's been a lot for people. So that said, I decided that my kind of embracing play-ish was just to be like, we're just going to like let go of that and not do it and take a day off.
I love that.
I know. So it worked out.
Good. How was your Mother's Day?
Mother's Day was lovely. We pretty much stayed home. I saw some of my family the night before. We went out to dinner, which is something that we typically do every year. And then Mother's Day itself, my boys did a lot of yard work and planting and gardening and made things very beautiful in the yard and made me breakfast. And then Griff learned how to make the top secret meatball recipe that Tyler makes. And he cooked us dinner.
Ooh, is it even top secret to you?
I've seen it from afar, but I've never made it myself. So I've never, been really given the full recipe. I know, but it was delicious. So we did that and we just did it low key. How was yours? You had a special Mother's Day.
I did. I got up and I went to my special Pilates class.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came home and Addie was making me breakfast, which was delicious. And my husband stayed up till 3:30 in the morning making me pipe cleaner flowers. They were
amazing. They looked gorgeous.
They were so incredible. Addie had found a Pinterest board, but she didn't have time to make them because she was working on my beautiful card that she made. A while back, the Pearl Jam song Wish.
Mm-hmm.
She's such a good poet. I was like, I need you to recreate the words to this song for me.
Mm-hmm.
She felt like that was a bold ask.
Okay.
But I was like, listen, I know you can do it. And asked her multiple times to do it. So she felt like for Mother's Day, it was a time.
Yes.
And I felt like that was a pretty great gift. So she did it.
That's awesome.
It was really awesome. Yeah. And then she wrote me a beautiful note also in the card. And then Hayden got me a pretty funny card and also wrote a note, which he always puts a walrus in it. Obviously, he drew his signature walrus and signs his first and last name, which I always appreciate because I'm never sure if it's my Hayden or a different one. So
right. It's a good thing you
there's a lot of Haydens.
It could have been a different Hayden who sent you this Mother's Day card randomly with a walrus on it.
Yes.
Just in case.
And he's really committed to getting me the flower Lego collection. And I'm one shy now because he got me the second to last one that I need. So I have to bring it into the office.
Which one is it? What kind of flower? You don't remember?
No. Well, I'm not good at naming flowers.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I wouldn't know which one it was even if you said it. What color is it?
Red.
Red? Oh, I know the red one.
Yeah, it's the red one.
That's all you have to say to me. The red Lego flower. I know.
Yes. It's beautiful. Yeah. So I'm going to bring it in. I'll put it somewhere in the office.
I'm excited. Yeah. I love it. There's so many. They're beautiful. There's one over there.
Yeah. So we'll put it somewhere. Maybe in your office.
I need it.
Look at there. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to redo it anyway. We were just saying so.
Mm-hmm. And then we went to Six Flags.
Which is really big on play. Let's be honest. You played hard on Mother's Day.
I played hard.
Six Flags is a really playful thing to do for Mother's Day.
Which was busier than I thought it would be. But it was so fun. We usually get the fast passes, but we just did not. I did not want to spend the money. So we only went on 3 rides.
Okay.
But it was still fun.
Yeah. There's still a lot to do. And just being in the atmosphere, I feel like is fun. So
it was good. We had a good time.
Great. All right. Well, I guess we both played this week in some way.
Yeah. What I am realizing, though, coming into this week and seeing clients, though, is, which I think inspires the conversation that we're going to have today, is the complexity of Mother's Day. It was a topic of conversation this week for a lot of my clients, and both the successes of Mother's Day and sort of the joy that people felt in being valued, but also the challenges and the sadness that it brought.
It is. It's such a loaded day. And I think between, you know, your own experience and relationship, whether it's difficult relationships, loss, between mothers, between kids, you know, like there's so many layers to it, I think, between like your own identity as well.
Exactly.
And it's complicated.
It's very complicated. So, yeah. And since it's Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yes, May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yeah.
We thought we'd talk about that today. And what we wanted to focus on is mental health, stigma, and what happens between the crises.
Yes. And, you know, we're more aware of mental health than we've ever been before. But at the same time, so many people are still struggling in silence.
Yeah.
And I think you and I have talked about that, like, even people that come into our offices still feel uncomfortable being here and feeling like, I don't know that I am deserving of taking up space here because I don't know that I have experienced enough trauma to need this.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. And it's interesting because people, or I'll even hear from people who reach out and I'm back in touch and we schedule out maybe like a week or two. And then by the time they come in, they're kind of like, oh, but, you know, I kind of dealt with like the immediacy of the crisis might have passed in some way, even something small that kind of prompted them to reach out. And then it takes a while to sort of dig in and get to. And I always know, right? Trust the process. Like I see people do this all the time. But I think for people stepping into this, it's like awkward and uncomfortable for them to not be like, I'm coming here to talk about this specific problem or crisis that happened in my life. Or if things are kind of in a little bit of an upswing again, it's almost like, do I really need to be here?
Right, I'm good. I'm fine. I don't want to invest in the time or the money or...
Right. And so there's this little bit of time. And then what I'll find is I'll also have folks who end up feeling a little bit surprised at like where we get to by the end of session of like, wow, I didn't expect to say all that today or go there. I had no idea that's what I was going to be talking about. So it's an interesting like phenomenon.
It's really interesting. And I also find some individuals will come and as soon as they sit down in the office, they'll immediately start to cry and they'll be so surprised by the emotion. But because they've suppressed so much of their grief or pain
Mm-hmm.
in every other aspect of their life, to finally have a space that they know is intentionally safe and a container to be able to be open, their body just automatically is able to release it. And they're almost surprised by the fact that they're like, on the first meeting, like within the first 30 seconds, their body is able to kind of release that pain. And it's surprising, I think, especially for first time therapy goers. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect this.
Yeah. And also just the discomfort with that emotion. I agree. I think some people truly are, almost about to bubble over, but they don't even realize. And then they're surprised by their own emotion. I get a lot of people who are so apologetic, and I have to constantly remind people like, those tissues are there because pretty much they get used every time someone's in this room, And I think without the exposure to it or it being their first time in therapy, they really don't know what to expect and are still overwhelmed by their own emotion and then kind of uncomfortable about the expression of it. And so just normalizing like that part of the process, and that this is the space to really acknowledge and recognize what you're holding on to.
And I can tell you that even as a therapist and someone that has a lot of insight and works very hard to be tapped into by what's going on for me personally, I can go into my therapist's office and sit down and be surprised by my emotions sometimes and be like, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
Yes, always. I feel like I do the same exact thing. So it's not just, right, having the perspective that we have that changes that. Like, I think as individuals, it's still surprising to us sometimes what we're carrying if we're not creating the space, whether it's in therapy or wherever, with, to acknowledge what we're holding.
And I think that one of the things that I see, and I see, a fair number of men in my practice, that it is much harder for men to ask for help.
Yeah.
Socially, I think still, despite the efforts that have been made to change the stigma and the conditioning, it's still seen as don't show weakness, don't express emotion, be self-reliant. You still need to be the man of the house, the provider. And some of that is, I think there's some, with the way culture is right now, like we're reverting backwards a little bit in some sects of our country, which is making it even harder for men to access support and their emotions.
Absolutely.
And what that results in, right, is that you're less likely to seek therapy, you're more likely to suppress your emotions, and it results in a higher rate of death by suicide.
Yeah, because we're not accessing the support. And I was thinking a lot about this. I know you and I just talked about this recently with our boys being similar in age, teenagers in the 7th, 8th grade time, moving into high school soon. I don't know about you, but I'm very cognizant of like the shifts that I know. It doesn't mean they have to come, but like often come with the pressure of what this developmental stage shifts into from, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old boys. My 13-year-old is still pretty little to me. Like he's growing up in so many ways, but I can still see him as little. And I'm just like waiting on this shift that I know is happening. And it occurred to me the other day that I just wanted to really explicitly name like the importance of open communication, and that there are things and topics that could come up even amongst his friends that absolutely need to be shared, whether it's about thoughts of self-harm or thoughts of suicide. And if that comes up, that, there's still this vulnerable stage where I think they're all still talking a lot at this age, and I hope that continues, but sometimes it doesn't. And also just reiterating like to him that like there will not be a problem we can't solve together, that we have to be able to rely on each other and be open with one another, at the very least, just he and I, to be able to have that connection. And I just felt very strongly kind of suddenly to be like, I need to address this. And I was glad I did, because he opened up and shared some things he had been hearing and like what boys were talking about. And I feel grateful. I know not every boy is that open, but you have an open boy too. And I feel like, I don't know what your perspective on that has been lately.
It is interesting because, having a a son and a daughter, in terms of like emotional vocabulary and willingness to express openly, there's a gender difference already that I'm seeing very clearly. Like my daughter is much more willing and able to openly express very articulately where she's at, and she will do it brilliantly through poetry and in conversation, where my son is more likely to act it out in a very more stereotypical way that you would see. And so I'll know, like, if he gets more irritable or shut down, that like something's bothering him, and I'll go check in, but he doesn't necessarily verbalize it as clearly. Even if he has like the emotional language to be able to talk about it, he's not as comfortable. Even with a therapist mom,
Right.
it's given him the language to be able to do that. And he does, and you know, like we've talked about it, he doesn't like to talk about it. He doesn't want to talk about it. So it really takes a lot of effort and support to get him to, I have to be very intentional and slow down and support him to do that with him.
Yeah, it must be interesting to see that difference and sort of how it plays out, because it's such like a critical time, I feel like, this adolescent phase, and so much changes for kids during this time. And then there's the beauty of like the recognition of what he's expressing, even if it isn't verbally.
Right.
And I do think that gets missed a lot for people. And I think it can be avoided by some people because it's not as in your face or obvious. And if they are less vocal and verbal and sort of what's going on, I think there's a lot of room to miss things and a lot of room to not necessarily have the attunement we need to be present to see what their reality might be, and create space to have those conversations and address it when we see it and ask and be curious.
Yeah. And he's a highly sensitive kid that like feels deeply and is so like, he hates to see conflict and pain and like, you know, and I'll never forget, he was little when How to Train a Dragon came out. And when the dad died, he was crying. And I remember feeling like, I can't believe he understands that concept.
Yeah.
Too. Like, you know, and seeing tears coming down his face, like it was so surprising to me that at that young age, he already got that empathy and that from a movie.
Right. Yeah.
So as a highly sensitive kid, like I felt like I needed to like make sure I tapped into that. But now even like, you know, in terms of the gender thing, like seeing that like, he's not talking about it to me.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Yeah. And I have a very verbal kid who talks a lot and he tells me a lot. But I feel like there's still a similarity there where for him, I do have to like pull some of this out, right? This isn't his go-to conversation anymore, which is like, oh, this thing's bothering me or this thing happened. Like sometimes it's really much more, I have to find the right in. And if I go too far, he's like, no, I'm not saying anything. You know, there's like this sweet spot of how to access, I think, his world differently, but I'm feeling that difference. So I don't know. It's interesting. I think it's important to recognize the social piece, like, and what that socialization looks like, and especially that in that gender specific way.
Well, and like how we understand, especially kids in school, like how we understand behaviors and the difference in behaviors in girls versus boys, and then how we address them. Right? Like a boy that acts out because they're sad is going to get tracked in a disciplinary way, where a girl might get more support and therapy.
I agree. And I think it's hard for people to shift that and shift the frame and look at it differently. I think especially when it's confusing to people or teachers are confused. You know, I have a very sensitive kid as well. And I know that one of the things we talk a lot about is like his emotional responses to things, and trying to find this sweet spot where I want him to always have the comfort of knowing you can always express how you feel. And he also carries a lot of negative emotion about like if he's feeling too much or has an experience where he's getting emotional at school and doesn't want to be, right? So there's sort of this like dance that we're trying to navigate here. And even teachers, like, it's hard to know how to address that. Are we ignoring this because we don't want to bring attention to it? Are we like, why don't you go take a walk? Like, and those are some of the things we've talked about together is like, I see that though. And I see that there's not necessarily this clear connection around curiosity of what could be going on or directing in the space of like, yeah, let's talk with somebody who could be helpful. Like, it's more kind of figure out how to get it together. Like, that's the vibe I get.
Right, which only teaches you to suppress it.
Right.
And that's always been why, like, when I was doing attachment work back earlier in my career, and we were talking about time ins versus time outs, right? And the whole premise of a time in is because a time out teaches a kid that you're only worthy of my love if you are behaving in a certain way, right? If you're dysregulated and acting out, then I don't want to be around you.
Right.
You have to be banished over here. And when you can get yourself together, then you are worthy of my love and connection.
Right.
But unless you're perfect, I don't want to be around you.
Right.
And kids internalize that. We internalize that message. And so that really resonated with me as a young social worker of like, oh, and I could remember, like, I feel like we didn't know what we didn't know back in the day. And, we've all evolved and learned, but I can remember as a kid feeling that way, feeling banished and how I internalized that, so being very intentional in my parenting with my kids so that they didn't experience that or feel that. And certainly, I'm sure I know that I did not nail it, do it perfectly, and they were, you know what I mean? But like,
us do, yeah, yep.
But that just stuck with me, and I think that I don't know that I mean, we all know that the school systems don't have enough support or resources to also address
every single child's needs in that way, emotionally and behaviorally, right? Like, I think it's a tough world out there.
It's a tough world out there. I think, though, the other piece in all of this that is true universally, no matter what age we're at, is that we're better at responding to crises than we are at supporting people before and after it.
Right. It's such a clear, even the examples we were just talking about with school, right? It's sort of a reactive response of, oh, you're having a problem right now, so let's respond to the problem. If you have a huge trauma or something big happening, yeah, you want to have support during that time. You want to get stable. You want to have safety. But I think in our work, we also know there's so much more to it. And when we get to work with people in those spaces between those crises,
I think oftentimes, the real work is between the crises. It's hard to find the motivation to do it between the crises.
Right.
But that's where you can really look at the deeper work, the childhood experiences, your attachment patterns, any trauma that you may have had, and really do some of the deep identity and worth and value-based work that can kind of help you heal in a way that you wouldn't be able to do in crises.
Right. I think it's a more sustainable approach too. And I was curious what you thought of how that ties into worthiness, because to me, I do think a piece of it is a worthiness problem around, it's a lot easier to say, oh, this thing happened to me and I'm getting help for it. I find that people tend to make a more direct connection there. And when I have people who are less comfortable with that or more comfortable coming in during those times, but then struggle in this in between, a lot of the stuff we end up talking about is worthiness and being worthy of like accessing that support and healing and working through things, even when it's not during a time of crisis. I don't know if you see that or if that resonates.
It totally resonates. And I think I talk about self-worth a lot and talking about like worthy of love and belonging with people who often feel disconnected to that. And again, it goes back to what we have talked a lot about of external validation versus internal validation. And oftentimes feel like this external validation of like, well, I feel good about myself from these external data points.
Yep.
I work out, I do this, I do that. This person says they like this about me. This person says I like that about me. And I'll point out like all of those things are externally driven. And when those people aren't giving you that input, you fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
You're deserving of love and belonging and worthiness in the absence of any of that input, just for showing up in the game, for being you.
Yeah.
And that is what a lot of people struggle with without that. And I think the other thing is that, like, and what we talk about too, is that part of the motivation to do the work in the calm, and we talk about it too sometimes, is like strike while the iron's cold, because the iron's gonna get hot again.
Yeah.
That's just life. And I learned that the hard way in my 20s when, you know, life just kept coming at me, and I had this naive thought of like, when is it just gonna stop? And it's sort of like, it doesn't. Like, that's just life. You have periods of calm between storms. Or you can say you have storms between the calm, however you want to view it, you know, depending on if you're a half full or half empty person. But if you have a more sense of worthiness core, you can weather the storms better. You're able to manage the traumas or the things that come at you in the future with more resilience than you would if you didn't do the work, because your ego is developed in a way that you know your worth, you know who you are as a self. Your sense of self is strong, despite what other people are telling you about yourself. You don't have to have that data to believe who you are and how to weather that, so that you can walk through that storm and know you'll survive.
Right.
Like, that's the point. That's why you do the work in the calm.
Yes. And it reminds me of the point we were making in our last episode about like the way that we invest in ourselves and how important it is to see the value and understanding that investing in yourself in the short term or in bursts or in urgent ways, right? So last time we talked about that in terms of play, and how there's a difference between investing in like embodying that in your life and having sporadic moments of going to the really expensive concert and investing in yourself that way. Like, that's not the sustainable way to make change. And so when you're saying all this about self-worth, like understanding yourself and who you are and how you engage in the world, whether that's in a period of calm or in a crisis, but still being true to you and really knowing that is the type of investment that's the long term, that is going to sprout all the seeds throughout your life and give you the tools to navigate difficult things.
To me, like, the way I think about it from my military experience is like, you do a lot of training exercises prior to going to war. Because it needs to be automatic, right? Like, you need to know before you go into battle, like, what the person on your right and the person on your left is going to do, and you need to know what you're going to do without thinking about it, because you're going into very stressful situations. And if you don't know how you're going to respond and what you're going to do and what the person on your left and the right and behind and in front of you is going to do, you will die. It's that.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, doing the work to heal your mind and body and spirit before going into a crisis helps you do that.
I love that analogy. It gives you that automatic response, and it breaks old patterns, because I think we've all developed automatic responses that at one point served us. And a lot of what the deeper level work reveals to us is that those things that we once needed and did automatically are no longer the things we actually need now in our lives.
Right.
And so we have to create a new formula or a new pattern of what that actually is, so that when we go out in the world going forward, we're not responding automatically to really old things that we learned out of, you know, childhood that were meant to protect us from situations and experiences we didn't have words to even understand at the time, to who we are now as adults in our 40s, 50s, 60s. Like, we're at a phase of life that you may not need that same thing. So your automatic response, like, we want to untangle what that automatic response is and sort of create a new one that's more beneficial to you and helpful to you now in life.
It's so funny that you say that, because a lot of times in my therapy sessions, some of the mantras that I will help people say is that I think you're getting stuck in your childhood self of thinking that you're still in that situation back then because your nervous system still feels familiar because there's similar patterns that are happening in that situation. And so you have to remind yourself that you're not that person and that situation's not the same. And if you can help your brain remember or connect that this isn't the same thing, then you will respond differently. And it's pattern and repetition. And the more that you have a pattern and repetition that changes, you will create a different situation.
What do you think? Because I think with our training, right, and that's a piece of what we're trying to offer today is sort of the insight that we have, obviously being trained and understanding this stuff. Like, I think even as you mentioned earlier, like in our own therapy, this stuff is so universal. Even when you know it and we say it like we do now, it doesn't mean it's not hard for us to do the same thing, right? That this is sort of a human experience. But with all of that, we know the benefit. We could talk about this, and it does remind me of what we talked about last time. But what do you think some of the barriers are for people, or why there's avoidance for doing deep work?
I think change is scary. I mean, we've talked about that before. I think that people are most comfortable in the homeostasis of what is familiar. Our nervous system wants to be in the homeostasis. So I think when one person changes, the system tries to pull you back to that same. I was actually just talking to someone recently about how it's when you have foster kids that are in a safe environment, but they're still continuously drawn to want to go back to their biological family that is extremely unsafe. But it's what they know. It's familiar. Their nervous system is safe in that.
I mean, I think it's like you develop the strategies to make the situation you're in, even if it is an unsafe situation, work for you, right? There's a ton of resilience as a kid. So in that, the nervous system is wired to be used to and like feel the familiarity, and that familiarity is where they still, I think, would gain that connection in some way, even when it feels really messy, that's still like what feels safe, even though from the outside we can see that that's completely unsafe, right? But as a kid, you don't know it that way. Like, it's just your experience, it's your lens,
right?
So you adapt to it. And we see that play out. Like, I think this is a great example, but you see it play out in adulthood all the time. You know, I have somebody I just spoke with who made this huge connection this past week about how her response to a current situation at work is absolutely directly linked to this huge trauma from her childhood, and she was responding to it as if that's what it was, right? Not the current situation.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about that rewiring for like the foster kids, I think that is they need enough repetition and experience to rewire like what the connection and safe connection is to be able to let go of like the old pattern.
But yeah, basically there has to be enough pattern and repetition. We know it takes at least 30 days to build a habit. And we watched a video years ago on like learning how to ride a bike backwards. And it took the engineer that rode the backwards bike 6 months to learn it. It took the kid 30 days. But when he went back to the regular bike that he rode normally, 5 minutes he was back on it. And it took him even longer to get back to getting his brain to learn how to ride the backwards bike again.
Right.
Just because we're so rooted in our patterns, like we are capable of learning something new, but our brains are rooted to the original synapses, right? Like,
yeah, and that really, I talk about it a lot in terms of like the track in the road that's really well dug out. Like when you have a track that you've run 1,000 times and it is really ingrained and strong, and that track is so well dug out that the sides are really, prevent you from hopping off the track. Like that's the familiar track. When you create a new one, you're just starting, and you're going to just bounce back to the old one so naturally until the other one has really created just as much.
And I think too, when people have experienced a lot of trauma and don't feel that confident in their ability to successfully make changes and stuff, it's sort of like, well, this on some level works for me. I might be miserable, I might whatever, but I at least know it. I know how to navigate this misery. the other unknown path could be worse.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather stay in the familiar than risk the unknown.
Yep.
So I think it takes a lot of courage to take a leap of faith.
I operate from that space a lot all the time. I think we've talked about this a ton, but it was a big part of why we stay stuck in our patterns, why we stay in unhealthy situations, because the known is still sometimes more comfortable than what's out there that's unknown.
That's why I think my daughter's one of the bravest people I've ever met in my life, because change is terrifying for her. She freaking hates it.
Yep.
But she never lets that stop her from trying anything.
Yeah.
Because she has so much grit and she just is so resilient, and she pushes herself to find the courage and whatever reserve she has in her, no matter how terrified she is, to do the next scary thing. And she does it every time, no matter what it takes in terms of energy for her to do it.
Yeah.
She still does it. And that kid hates change.
Yeah. It's remarkable. And you talk to me about that a lot. And I think it's so true. And I think it's a huge piece of why I think this work for people is so important, because it's not only us being able to see like the strength in others and like what our kids are capable of and what they're doing, but I also think you, and we've talked about that here, like your ability to model, you're much more comfortable in change, right? You and I talk about this all the time. That's why we joke that me and your daughter are similar people in some ways, because I'm more change averse than you are. But in this speaks, I don't know what her experience is, but I value this with you, is that you model beautifully the power of how change does have, like, change is not all bad. And you've dealt with a lot of bad change. And that doesn't mean that then you've just decided I'm never changing again and I'm pulling away and I can't think of like how to make my life better in some way, right? That you still show up and you still do it differently. And even though you may have more comfort with it, I think it still shows the value of why showing up and continuing and having perseverance and finding the next right thing, even if the first thing isn't the right thing, or pivoting when you're on a trip and right, like I think of all the stories you share, like you model that all the time. And I can't imagine that doesn't shape the experience, even though she's afraid of the change. I think she's seen over and over again that like it can also be good, even if it feels scary.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's a big part of it. And I think a big part of why we're talking about this today is because that type of change, like within a family system, can kind of start anywhere. And even when our kids are the ones struggling, like if we're willing to dive in and do the work on ourselves, it models that. It shows that it's possible. Even if we do it in our 40s, 50s, 60s, later in life, that it still models and shows that there is value in leaning in and learning how to do things differently and challenging our fears.
Absolutely. It helps us understand ourselves. It helps us build capacity. I think it helps us improve our relationships and creates alignment within ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I love this quote: mental health support is not about getting through something. It's about becoming someone who understands themselves.
Yeah. Right. It's not going to be a one and done thing. It's not the kind of thing that I only need to go in crisis, and then when that crisis has passed, like I'm changed and I'm better kind of a thing, right? That's lifelong work. And even in the acute crisis, there will always be things that we can do to help ourselves know ourselves and understand ourselves more. And when we can do that, we harness our strength and resilience.
Exactly.
And so I think one of the messages that we want to make clear in this Mental Health Awareness Month is that mental health is not just about going through the hardest moments. It's about what you build in the space between them.
Absolutely.
And that you're always worthy and deserving of working on yourself and understanding yourself and getting help if you need it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So our takeaways for today are: mental health conversations have expanded, but access and stigma still exist. Awareness alone has not removed the barriers that keep people from getting support.
Boys and men are still less likely to seek help. Social messaging around strength, emotion, and independence continues to impact how and when people access care.
Crisis care is critical, but it's not the full solution. Stabilization keeps people safe. It does not address the underlying patterns that shape behavior and experience.
The space between crises is where deeper healing happens. This is where work around attachment, trauma, identity, and values takes place.
We tend to prioritize what feels urgent over what supports us long term. Quick relief is easier to choose, even when sustained work creates real change.
Mental health support is not just about survival, it is about understanding yourself, building capacity, and creating the life that feels more aligned.
What we model changes how others seek help. Whether as parents, leaders, or individuals, how we talk about and engage with mental health shapes others' willingness to do the same. So, over the next 2 weeks, think about how you can lean into your own mental health. And if you're not already seeking support, if you need it, lean in.
Test it out. If you haven't tried it before, you should just test it out and see how it feels.
Yeah.
I think you'll be surprised.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.